The Sooners must try to shake the sting of the Red River rivalry loss and steel themselves for what lies ahead. In the SEC, there are no bye weeks. 6 games still on the slate, and 4 of those future foes reside in the top 20 this week. Fortunately, there's no place like home, and the season can shift this Saturday in the beautiful Show Palace on the Prairie. From Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, Sooner Game Day is presented by Taco Mayo. Big appetite, bigger savings. Download and save today. Former Oklahoma assistant coach Shane Beamer brings his South Carolina Gamecocks to Norman for the first ever meeting between the two programs. Kickoff 11:45 a.m. The game is on SEC Network with Tom Hart, Colt Kubelik, and Alyssa Lang calling the action. Perhaps a get-better game for the Sooners, and good news as we welcome you inside our studios. Since Bob Stoops arrived in Norman 1999, Oklahoma is 24-1 the week following Texas. These guys played in a lot of those games. My partners, the Butkus and Bednarik award-winning linebacker, national champion at Oklahoma, Teddy Lehman, and Gabe Eichert is the Werfel Trophy winner, academic All-American of the Year and All-American Center. I'm your host, Chad McKee. So this week, South Carolina, Oklahoma, you got offenses that have struggled at times. They're both outside the top 75 nationally in scoring. And you got 2 defenses that have been on the field a lot, but are inside the top 40 in fewest points allowed. Take the under? Is that what we're going to go with, Teddy?
I don't know. Perhaps.
Okay.
I expect chaos. If you've watched if you've watched the South Carolina game, that's what you get. There's all kinds of stuff. Turnovers, special teams is crazy.
Going for it on 4th down early in games.
It's wild.
Fake punts.
It's going to have
Love it.
And they've played in a bunch of close games too. But they're a tough team, and they're not going to be fearing Oklahoma coming in. Just went into Tuscaloosa, played Alabama really tight. They had LSU on the ropes at home. So this team is gaining momentum. Young quarterback that he's getting better and better as the season rolls on. They're healthier. It's going to be a tough battle.
A very talented team coming to Norman.
Yeah, that's indisputable.
And that's you look at the roster, you watch them on film. They've got size, they've got length, they've got speed. My hope is the Sooners taking it on the chin in Dallas results in them maybe reevaluating some things. And I'm talking about the players. You get embarrassed in front of the entire country like that, and that can lead to some tough and productive conversations. So my hope is they've worked some of those things out this week, and we see the best version of Oklahoma on the field.
It's a fork in the middle of the road kind of a game, honestly. Which way are you going to go as a player, Ted? I know you have been there before, but you look at this game and nobody's going to cry for you for either of these teams. I mean, they've played 3 of the top 15 teams in the country, have the Gamecocks. Oklahoma's played 2 of the top 6. But for the Sooners, Gabe, the question everybody wants answered is what can you do offensively to try to get things out of neutral?
Well, you got to have some explosive plays. That will go a long way in helping this offense produce, but I think you could see this football team simplify some things for the players, especially in the run game. And then players got to execute at a higher level. There are plays to be made. You got guys missing blocks. You got guys missing assignments. You got guys not knowing which way the ball is supposed to go in concepts. These things are just unacceptable. And it sounds like these types of things are not happening throughout the week of practice. And for whatever reason, it's happening on game day. That has to stop. I mean, you've got to block better. You got to run the ball better. You got to throw the ball better. You got to run better routes. You got to catch the ball better. You got to do everything better because it just has not been good enough offensively. But I'm hopeful that with how bad it went against Texas, that it helps these guys lock in even more. And some of those mistakes, those execution errors we've been seeing on the field on game days offensively, I'm hoping that some of those disappear, Ted.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt. We have to get better execution. As far as like some of the game plan stuff, I think you got to get the ball out of Mike Hawkins' hand really quickly, throw some quick underneath stuff, try and nullify that pass rush because they've got some guys, and I know we'll get into that. Screens, but Gabe's right. You got to be able to run the football, and in order to do that, you got to move people and you got to execute.
The Scoop is presented by your neighborhood Brahms Ice Cream and Dairy Stores, farm fresh for over 50 years. Gamecocks, you said it, crazy games. I mean, they got a chance with a 2-point conversion to tie Alabama in the final minutes. Then a perfectly executed Beamer ball, onside kick, gives them the ball back. Time runs out. They lose that one. They lost the 3-point game to LSU, or this season could look a lot different. It really could for the Gamecocks. So when you look at them, they were in Alabama's backfield all day. They really were. Sacked Milroe 4 times. Teddy, when you look at them, what do you see? A defensively strong team that's just kind of struggling on offense?
Yeah, exactly right. Defense, they've got some premium players. We're talking, first-round type of NFL talent guys, especially on the edge. They are big, they're fast, they're physical. They've got some really good length in the secondary. They've got good corners. They play hard. Now, it's a defense that takes a bunch of risk. Their players will come under blocks, come flying up the field in order to get some good production, which they do quite a bit, but there should be some areas that you take advantage of that. And on offense, I think they're still trying to find their groove. Lenore Sellers is really started to come around, and they offer a bunch of stuff in the run game with him kind of being the key piece.
This South Carolina defense is very good. They're a lot better than I want them to be. And it starts with the guys at the edge spots.
5 and 6.
5 and 6 are an absolute problem for everyone, not just Oklahoma.
Yeah, 9 tackles for loss against Jalen Milroe and Alabama.
Against the most athletic quarterback in America. And that includes the National Football League. Milroe is a freak athlete.
That's hard to argue.
And he was running for his life for a lot of that game. And I think this is a group for South Carolina on defense that is coming into this game knowing that OU's offense is struggling, and they're going to be ultra aggressive.
Connections between the programs, of course, there's the Shane Beamer connection, but how about Spencer Rattler? Began his quarterbacking career at Oklahoma, goes to South Carolina, finished his career there last year, and then starts last Sunday, also Thursday night game in the NFL, but played against Baker Mayfield when he was with the Saints. Saints versus Bucks, crazy connections between the two programs. But the first time they've ever played on the football field comes on Saturday. Coming up next, Sooner offense, tough sledding on the Cotton Ball Stadium turf. Can they find their footing? Can they get Michael Hawkins comfortable? Remember, this is going to be his first home start at Oklahoma. And is there any good news in what's been a pretty bleak injury report through much of the season for the Sooners? Some answers next on Sooner Game Day, presented by Taco Mayo. First ever meeting between Oklahoma and South Carolina, the Gamecocks, and then Maine here in a couple of weeks. They'll be the 95th and 96th ever opponents to visit this beautiful stadium as we continue to celebrate 100 years. Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, 11:45 kickoff. Welcome back into Sooner Game Day, presented by Taco Mayo. Teddy, Gabe, and Chad with you here, and we begin with Oklahoma starting quarterback Michael Hawkins. This will be his first home start, Gabe. I think he has been solid, probably not asked to do a whole lot, but let's remember, first 2 starts away from home, hasn't thrown an interception yet. Now, he has put the ball on the ground a couple of times, but he's played against very good defenses. That's going to continue. What would you like to see that show you signs that he is continuing steady improvement?
I'm not going to say I want to see him throw an interception. He's got to be more aggressive.
But it would be a sign of risk.
He's got to be more aggressive with the football in the passing game. There were some things there against Texas, and for whatever reason, Michael Hawkins Jr. just did not let it rip. He has to let it rip in this football game. With how aggressive they are in the secondary, South Carolina, those guys at corner, at safety, they want to make plays on the football. You have to use that against them, and you have to get some of these bodies to back up from the line of scrimmage. And the only way to do that is to throw the ball down the field. And to make them feel that threat, he's got to be more aggressive. And then in the running game, he's got to be cleaner with some of the reads when they're asking him to read, whether it's a linebacker, a safety, or the end man on the line of scrimmage. He's got to be clean in those reads. And then we saw it against Texas. When he is running, he has to protect the football. It is on tape now. It is on tape. So every team is going to come punching at it when 9 is carrying the football. And he knows that. Got to protect it.
Ted, how can they help him, or can they help him?
Well, he needs to get the ball out of his hands quick, and you can do that as an offensive coordinator. through the week of practice, whether it's installing stuff or, taking advantage of some different looks. But the ball's got to come out quick. And, he needs to keep his eyes downfield a little bit. And it's hard to trust the offensive line. It's been a work in progress, but I think he starts to feel pressure and gets the panicked feet a little bit more. But most importantly, whenever he has opportunities, he's got to be able to hit. It's been very difficult to find anything down the field. We had one against Texas earlier. I think it was his first drive.
Third play of the game.
Yeah, and we missed it. We don't have the margin for error to be able to hit long foul balls. We got to be able to take advantage of those shots when we get them.
Ted mentioned the offensive line just a second ago, Gabe, but this is the first time in back-to-back games the same 5 players have started in the same 5 spots on the offensive line in consecutive games. Your reaction, you're like, okay, yeah, that's good, but it's got to get better still, right?
Well, I don't think it's going to be the same 5 guys.
Ah.
I mean, you don't make Troy Everett a captain if you don't start him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't think so.
I mean, if you're a captain for the football game, you're going to start, I would assume. And we saw Troy get in at the end of the Texas game, and he looked healthy. Looked a little nervous. Feet were going a little quick, but he looked healthy. And I think he's the most vocal guy in that offensive line room. And right now, I think that's something that this group needs. We'll see what happens at left tackle and left guard. We saw, Beatenbow pulled Tarquin from the game, moved Sexton to left tackle, played Heath Ozida at left guard. I don't know what that left side's going to look like. I feel confident it's going to be Wee-Woo and Taylor at right guard and right tackle, but yeah, I almost at this point would be surprised if it's the same 5 we saw start against Texas.
Yeah, and the continuity element of it. Yeah, you may have a healthier,
so there goes your continuity.
Sorry, it's out the window.
Hey, find the best 5. That's all I care about.
That's the right point.
That's all I care about.
That's the right point there. And also, Teddy, it's maybe a little good news on the injury front, which has been hard to come by. Taylor Tatum got back in there for a couple of carries against Texas at the running back spot. Again, you always have Coach Venables on the midweek coaches show, which is actually earlier in the week these days. Right. So we don't have a great picture of what it's going to look like. But is it possible we see a little improvement on the injury front?
Maybe. I mean, it's been a little iffy with Deion Burks.
Sure.
He was listed as questionable, which is way better than it's been, So I guess there's an opportunity there. I'm not really holding out a bunch of hope, but if you were able to get him in and he is, 80, 90, 95% of what he is previously, that could still benefit the offense a lot.
Put your offensive coordinator hats on, both of you. Ted, start with you. Put them on. Come on, Ted. Thank you, Gabe. Ted does not like to listen to me. He'll listen to you on occasion. Put it on. Tell me, how would you attack this game? How would you approach it?
I get the ball out of the quarterback's hand quickly. Take advantage. Their defensive ends are excellent, but they come flying up the field. There's a bunch of ways you can take advantage of that, whether it's draws, screens, shovel pass stuff, get outside them with some pin and pull schemes to try and, cave those guys in and get to the perimeter. But I keep coming back to get the ball out of Mike Hawkins' hands quickly. You have to. He's not going to be able to sit in the pocket, dance around, and find guys downfield. We haven't been very good in scramble drills so far this year and creating big plays. So in my opinion, get that ball out quick so where our receivers have a chance, and not just the receivers, but Hawkins himself has a chance to get into some type of rhythm. And whenever you start throwing the ball underneath, it opens up all other kinds of things. Double moves, you can start to dictate what coverages they're going to be in. So I keep going back to get the ball out of Mike Hawkins' hands
That's
quick.
like 6 times Teddy said that, Gabe.
You're going to be screaming it by the second quarter, trust me.
The second you see 5 and 6 pass rush off
Ted
the
said
edge,
Ted
you'll
said
go,
it.
I think Ted was right. But I think looking at the run game, with the way that their edge guys play so far up the field, really no matter what, when it comes to what the blocking scheme is in front of them, you have to use that against them. Now, you got to be smart. I think counter, split zone, some of these things where you can create a natural gap when they're running up the field. I think those are 2 concepts that you have to utilize against this football team. Then you build play action and boot game off those. But I continue to believe, looking at this South Carolina defense, you have to throw it over their head. And one of the easiest ways to get the ball out of Michael Hawkins' hands quickly is you just have them take a 3-step drop and let it rip down the field. Yep. 5 and 6 can't sack them in that scenario. But I think throwing those go balls to Brennan Thompson, Zion Reagans, J.J. Hester, they got to throw them and they got to connect on them. And then I would like to see some just 2 or 3 man route stuff where they're max protecting, building off the run concepts as well. It sounds like we've thought a lot about this.
Yeah, we have.
It's a really good defense, but there are some plays to be made.
Mm-hmm. It can happen. Maybe it will happen. Sooners try to crack 300 yards of total offense for the 3rd time this season. We shall see. Coming up next, Sooner defense set a good tone early on against Texas, had an early turnover. First quarter went very, very well. And then just on the field a bunch, and Quinn Ewers and the Longhorns kind of got clicking. We will see. It's a solid South Carolina offense, but a playmaking Sooner defense. Turnovers could be a big story, as we shall explain next on Sooner Game Day. Welcome back into Sooner Game Day. First ever meeting between Oklahoma and South Carolina on the gridiron coming up on Saturday. Brent Venables did face South Carolina 9 times as defensive coordinator at Clemson. 9 times. He was 7-2, and he has a 7-game winning streak against South Carolina, technically coming into this game. So just some numbers we throw out there. Sooner defense first quarter, Teddy, really couldn't have gone much better against Texas. Didn't allow a first down. You get another pick from Billy Bowman back in the secondary, but only 3 points got produced. Then they're on the field a bunch the rest of the game. What happened from the second quarter on against Texas?
Well, you had some breakdowns, and the majority of it stems from missed tackles. And Texas schemed up some things really nicely. Credit those guys. They made some really nice plays. But, you know, we had a lot of guys in position to bring ball carriers down, and we didn't make those plays. We got out-hustled a little bit. I think our guys are getting a little bit worn down, but, you know, at this point, that's just an excuse. Everyone's playing a lot of football at this point. You know, I think whenever stuff starts to break down, the offense isn't doing very well. I think guys start to try and do more than they really need to, start trying to make someone else's play, and they don't lock down their responsibility. So there you go, there's another missed tackle. Instead of 3rd and 5 or 6 back there near the 30-yard line, you got 1st and goal. So it's the missed tackles. It was just a killer, and it all happened so quickly. Just that a couple of series in the second quarter, and the game just exploded open, and we weren't able to reel it back in.
Just a lack of complementary football for the team in general, and defense was excellent early, and there's just a giant missed opportunity to put some points on the board and create some separation and just build some confidence as a football team. But the thing that stood out to me for the defense, I mean, the majority of the time they played really solid defense, but the explosive plays, that's what really hurt them. And it goes back to what Teddy said about the missed tackles. It's those explosive plays that change football games.
So with missed tackles, Teddy mentioned maybe a tad bit of fatigue. I mean, you look at plays and time of possession for the opposing team, it's pretty similar, honestly. But it seems like they're out on the field a good deal. Gabe, is fatigue at all a factor?
They're on the field a lot. Now, they are playing a lot of guys, which I think, and other than Kendall Dolby, you look at this defense, pretty healthy, especially when you consider that we're midway through the season. So could that be a factor, how many snaps they're playing? Absolutely. But the thing that you worry about is the mental fatigue.
Yeah.
Of feeling the pressure of we can't even let the other team score because of how our offense is playing currently.
That's when guys start trying to go outside of what they're supposed to do to try and create something.
And you can say, hey, we can only control what we can control. Do your job. Don't worry about the offense. You can say all that stuff, but there's a human nature element to going, oh man, this is tough. And hopefully all of the leadership and experience they have on the defensive side of the ball, hopefully those guys aren't getting too concerned about the offensive issues.
Eli Bowen didn't look too concerned the other day as a true freshman hopping in there. And we had him this past offseason on signing day. We got to visit with him, so you get a little idea of what his makeup is all about. But he and Peyton become the first Sooner brothers to start a game since the Phillips brothers, John and Anthony, on the offensive line back in 1987. Not only did he start, Ted, he showed up in this game. Is he going to be in there more?
He was one of the big bright spots of the football game. I mean, he played almost every snap of the game, so it's hard. It's going to be hard to get him in there more.
Yeah, how's he going to play more?
But he performed really good. You know, I think offenses see the small stature and think that they can come at him. Great tackler. You see him; he's right there. He's physical. Did some good things in the run game, coming up to make plays. But you know, he is really good in his positioning, the deep ball. You see that break right there. He's in perfect position, playing the deep route, forcing him to throw it short, and he comes up and makes a good physical tackle. There he is on the edge, coming up in run support. Just a good all-around game. And you can trust, as a true freshman, he's in the right place when he needs to be. He's locking down the right receiver. He's in good position all the time, good fundamentals. He's years ahead of where he is right now.
You know, Gabe, here in a minute we're going to get more into the scouting specifics on the Gamecocks on offense, but Lenore Sellers, the quarterback, has been a little bit turnover prone. They would probably like to hand the football off and try to pound their way to a win. Is that the key matchup in this game? Oklahoma's run defense holding up against South Carolina's ability to just hand it off?
There's no doubt about it. And not only is he going to hand it to Rocket Sanders, who is a big physical back, Sellers is going to carry it himself, and they've got a lot of variety in their run game, and they've got a lot of QB run game, which is so difficult to defend as a defense because the offense gains an extra hat in the blocking scheme, and he's big. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's listed,
the size of a rocket ship.
He's listed at 6'3", 242. I've been told he's not quite 6'3", but you look at the guy's lower half. I mean, this is a big physical athlete, and he had that ankle injury against LSU, which made him go out of that football game. By the way, they win that game if he doesn't get hurt. Mm-hmm. And he looks like he's back to very close to 100%. He was running around against Bama. He was making plays with his legs as a scrambler and in the running game. I expect him to carry it quite a few times in this football game.
So we can break down the X's and O's, the matchups and all of that, but so often these games come down to turnovers. And here are some turnover stats for you. Oklahoma 7th nationally, 14 turnovers gained. South Carolina 115th. They've given the football away 12 times this season. More specifically, you get to fumbles. 8 fumbles lost by South Carolina this year. That's tied for last in the country. In Oklahoma, 8 fumbles gained. That's tied for first in the country. Who's got the pigskin, ball security, if it's a close, low-scoring game?
What's the most important thing in football, Chad?
Ball security.
The ball.
Yeah. Without it, it's hard to do much. and you got to do a lot when you have it as well, if that's possible. Coming up next, as we said, a little further scouting report. How about a scouting report on Team Beamer and the Gamecocks? Special teams always a player when you face a Beamer team, but a few too many turnovers, they're causing them as well with 2 wrecking balls coming at you off the edge that we'll talk about next on Sooner Game Day. Shane Beamer returns to Norman, a site where he headbutted Jeremiah Hall unsuccessfully just a few seasons ago.
Well, it was successful.
Good point, yeah.
It was a good headbutt. It just Jeremiah Hall was wearing a helmet.
Yeah, the calm demeanor, off the field, but there's a burning intensity inside of Shane Beamer. 4th season as head coach at South Carolina. Gabe, what's he brought to this program?
Well, first of all, he's the most likable guy ever. So he's brought that. Whether or not that matters to South Carolina's fan base, I'm not sure, but it never hurts to have a guy coaching your football team that you enjoy.
Yeah.
But I think the number one thing when you look at his 3.5 years there, I look at where the roster's at now. And I think that's the most impressive thing is he has assembled an athletic, big, physical roster. Guys, this is a team that probably should have beat Alabama. And if Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt, they beat LSU. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are they're right there when it comes to the talent you need to compete at the top of the SEC.
The only game that got away was Ole Miss, and
that was a strange
They went for it on
performance.
4th down early, didn't get it. Next series, they turned it over. So right away, first 4 or 5 minutes, they're down 2 touchdowns.
Right.
That's tough against Ole Miss. They like to front run. Lenora Sellers is right in the mix. He's really, Ted, coming off his best game against his first 200-yard passing game. Mobile, strong arm, but a bit turnover prone. So kind of break him down for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And he did have a really nice game against Alabama. The run game, all the intricacies they give you in the run game is what makes it the most difficult. They'll do a bunch of counter stuff. They'll do the zone read stuff. They'll get him outside the pocket. You know, the scramble drill stuff is they had some success against Alabama. They hit on a couple of them, scored a touchdown on one, missed on what would have been a touchdown on another. There you see the screen game that they get to, but his mobility is first and foremost. He's a big guy, he's physical, he's hard to bring down, and he throws a good ball. And I think he's gaining confidence as he goes, and I think they're adding things to his plate as they go along this season as well.
We talked about Rocket Sanders, Raheem, injured early, limited against Akron and Ole Miss in addition to the LSU game, but healthy now, ran for a score against Alabama, did Raheem Sanders. What's his strength, Gabe?
Strength.
Yeah.
He's big, strong, physical, and, you know, when he gets loose, he actually does have some nice elusiveness in the open field. Catches the ball well out of the backfield, is good in blitz pickup. This is a veteran guy that's played a lot of college football. He's a good all-around back. I mean, he's one of the best running backs that we will see this season. I really like this guy's game, and they're going to give it to him a lot. I think they're coming in here thinking they can be more physical than Oklahoma, and this Oklahoma defense is going to get a big dose of Rocket Sanders.
Yeah, one of those guys you just get tired of tackling him because of his physicality, Ted. But we saw a couple of plays there against Alabama where Sellers has got guys wide open in the back of the end zone. I mean, he threw for over 200 yards. He's got to be confident. You know, what did they do specifically in the passing game against Alabama last week?
Well, you saw some of the highlights there. The screen game is prolific for them. They like to get to the screens a bunch of different ways. They'll hit you with like some of the standard stuff you see, like the overs and unders, you know, trying to get guys to jump the short routes and leave the deep in-cutting routes open. And they'll throw some go balls on you. They'll let those guys on the outside. They got good wide receivers. You know, there's some experience there. And then they've got some youth at wide receiver. You think about Harbor, who's 6'5", 200 and almost 40 pounds, and is a big sprinter. He can get going on the outside. Been difficult getting him the football, but like I said, I think they're adding things as they go. Some of the play action stuff has been pretty good for them, but you know, when you have turnover problems, there's a fine balance between doing more, taking opportunities, and just trying to be safe with the football.
Defensively, South Carolina, and we've talked about him already, Gabe. 5 is Kyle Kennard. He has 7.5 sacks on the season. You're already rubbing your nose.
I'm okay.
Okay. 6 is Dylan Stewart.
I've had nightmares about these two players all week long.
Well, it's okay. You've only got one more night that you have to sleep before the game happens, so it's only one more sleepless night.
You can't let them wreck the game. And both of these guys are capable of wrecking the game. Kyle Kennard's going to be a first-round pick, and I think Dylan Stewart's ceiling...
He's a true freshman.
I think his ceiling is the first overall pick of the 2027 draft. He's that good. He's that dynamic. You have to help the tackles out. You cannot leave tight ends one-on-one with these guys, whether it's the run game or something. If you're trying to accomplish some things in pass protection, it's just not a good idea. But you got to chip them with backs and tight ends. You got to have their head on a swivel, and then whoever you're playing at tackle has to play well. I mean, these guys are violent, physical, aggressive, and they play with a ton of velocity every single snap. They are undoubtedly the best duo at the edge position that we have seen, and that is no disrespect to Tennessee and Texas. These two guys are just absolute dudes.
Yeah, Ted, I'm getting a bad feeling about watching these two guys, and that's this
I don't like it. I
This
can tell
is
you that.
Alabama that we're watching them go against.
They wrecked that game. I mean, they just did. They're that good. So I am interested to see what the plan is from OU's offensive staff to help the players out, because both of these guys are elite. Not good, not great. They are elite college football players.
Ted, how do you? I mean,
Well, you have to counter, like what Gabe's been saying and what you see there on film is they fly off the ball. They come straight up the field trying to get to the quarterback, trying to disrupt the run game. You have to find ways to take advantage of that. When defenses are going to be ultra risky and come flying off the ball, you have to have ways to counter that.
Number one way to slow these guys down, you're at home. Use the snap count. It is on film. It is proven. They will jump off sides across the board on their defensive line. These guys want to come off the rock and make plays. Ole Miss got them like 5 or 6 times.
like that idea.
Yeah.
You have to change up the snap count if you're Michael Hawkins Jr. That is something that Troy Everett or Branson Hickman, whoever is playing center, you got to remind him, hey, man, change the count.
And you'll be at home. That'll be a little easier to do. Crowd required to win the offense.
You can get those guys a little jumpy. For whatever reason, defensive linemen are a little jumpier when they can hear it. But you also, for Dylan Stewart in particular, you got to run it at him. You got to make him do the bad part of playing the edge position. You got to double him in counter. You got to double him in zone. You have to do all kinds of things to where he's got 2 bodies on him and he's not out in space getting to run and make plays, because he does that at a very high level.
We got to get to My Pleasure, presented by.
I'm not trying to scare you
I think
guys.
you're trying to be their agent, is what you're trying to. No, they're really
Watch
good
the
players.
tape.
Watch the tape. Watch the tape. My Pleasure, presented by Chick-fil-A. Download the Chick-fil-A app and order your favorites ahead of time. Teddy, what would give you the most pleasure on Saturday at about, what are we looking at? About 3:45, 4 o'clock in the afternoon here.
Well, we got to hit explosive plays on offense, run game and pass game. To me, you've got to be able to make them pay in both of those. Now, I don't know what we're going to do schematically to try and make that happen, but guys are going to have to execute, and that's mainly been our biggest problem. There's been some stuff that's there, whether it's, a seam route, hitting a guy in stride, or a running back making a cut, running through a tackle, turning something into an explosive run. We have to have some bigger plays on offense.
I agree, and I think it's got to be in the passing game. It's just hard to imagine. You look at how talented South Carolina is in the core of their defense, how big and physical they are. It's hard to imagine that this offensive line for Oklahoma is just all of a sudden going to start pushing people around. That's just not what we've seen this season. But they're extremely aggressive in the secondary. You have to push it down the field. You have to have that threat as an offense, and you got to connect on several of them. Explosive plays in the passing game, I think, are the key for OU's offense in this game.
My Pleasure has been presented by Chick-fil-A. Coming up next, what a great weekend of college football it was last week. As expected, down to the wire, Alabama and the South Carolina team, Ohio State and Oregon, brought about a college football rule change. It was so good. We'll recap it, make some picks next on Sooner Game Day.
Sooner Game Day is brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. OU Health, proud to be Oklahoma's flagship academic health system. The best place to gear up for game day is shop.soonersports.com. Log on to Soonersports.com/kids for information about joining the Sooner Junior Kids Club, presented by OG&E. And brought to you in part by Orthodontics exclusively, Mathis Home, and Devon Energy. Thank you to our cornerstone television partners, OU Health, OG&E, Fowler Auto Group, and Coca-Cola.
What a fun weekend of college football outside of the Cotton Bowl last week. And our NCAA update is presented by Taco Mayo. Big appetite, bigger savings. Download and save today. That game at the top was so good. And Dylan Gabriel, congratulations to him. He gets that victory. An NCAA rule change. It's weird to have an in-season rule change. It's also strange This is the first time that we've noticed it on a national scale.
Why did Dan Lanning admit to it?
Well, to make himself look
It's
smart.
it's like saying, hey.
It made him look
Gotcha.
awesome. Let's be
Yeah.
real. But that's one where you say, I don't know, shug about.
You guys figure that out.
You
That
never
was
know.
interesting how that
You never
played
know.
out.
Maybe what happens if they have to utilize the same strategy in a Big Ten championship
Yeah,
game?
he's taking it off the
Just
table
play
for
dumb.
himself.
Guy made a mistake.
Yep.
We're in a certain package. He thought he was supposed to be on the
The
field.
new loophole is just put 20 guys out there at the end of the game and just replay it for eternity, I guess. Not let
maybe a
anything in the
second
end
comes
zone.
off each time that the play happens. How about Vanderbilt continuing to get it done? They beat Kentucky. Kentucky's got to get off the mat this week. I think we got to get off the mat this week. Let's take a look at our picks from last week here. Our game day pick'em scoreboard. Yee!
Not good.
Upsets
Look
were
at
not
you,
kind.
Ted.
Okay. This is what happens.
Creeping up
We
there.
get to the midway mark and Ted starts to make that comeback. I've still got a substantial lead, but I can screw that up with the best of them, right? So on to this week's picks. As always, they're presented by Riverwind Casino. Good times, great rewards. So we thought Oklahoma had a tough schedule, and they do. Texas this week, they get Georgia down in Austin. Kirby Smart's team pushing and shoving their way.
Yep.
No pun kind of intended.
Doesn't matter who's in their way.
Doesn't matter who's in their way.
That clip is so funny.
I know it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens if he
The
gets in the
fake
way.
outrage people have over Kirby Smart barely touching that quarterback is so funny. to
Yeah,
me.
it wasn't exactly Woody Hayes back
These
in
guys
the day.
just salt each other all game, and
Yeah.
people are like, how dare he touch him?
So, speaking of quarterbacks, Ewers and Beck, does it come down to which one of those guys you trust the most, Teddy? I mean, who do you have your eyes on?
I don't know. I think that Quinn Ewers, they're different players, I
Yeah.
think. I think Texas right now is, you can't ignore how balanced they are as a football team. Being at home, I wish that we would have made that game way more interesting and put some stress on them. And if that was the case, you could say, okay, well, maybe after that big emotional win, maybe they're not going to be all there for Georgia. But it was a pretty calm second half for them. So I think they're going to be prepared. However, I will never pick Texas. I'm taking Georgia.
Gabe, similar?
I think Texas is a more complete football team right now. We're used to a dominant Georgia defense. That's just not what that group is right now for Kirby
I'm
Smart.
with you.
Carson Beck in some of these big games, he bounced back in the fourth quarter of that Alabama game in what was a crazy comeback that they eventually lost. He was not good in the first three quarters. If he plays that way, they're going to get run off the field by Texas. Give me Texas.
Give me Texas as well. I'm with Gabe. Alabama, Tennessee. This is interesting for several reasons. Nico Iamaleava and Josh Heupel, their offense has not been the same really since the second half when they were here in Norman. And then on the other side, Alabama, they're winning. But Jalen Milroe's taking a beating. I mean, he's having to do it a lot with his legs. I'm still going with Alabama in this game. Gabe, who you got?
I'm taking the Crimson Tide, and it's for one reason. I think they have the best playmaker in this football game, and that's Jalen Milroe. Whether it's finding Ryan Williams and him doing something ridiculous, or just Milroe being an absolute weapon with his legs. Tennessee's offense is struggling, Ted. I'm going Alabama.
I'm going Tennessee at home. I think that, and this is more about Alabama than it is Tennessee. And I think it's going to help the young quarterback being at home. But I don't see the same Alabama team. They're not as physical. The aura they had previously just isn't there. I'm seeing those guys getting hit in the mouth over and over. The offensive line, not what it was previously. Milroe is a great athlete, but he's making mistakes. He's turning the football over. I think Tennessee gets it done.
Wow, Ted's differed from us twice. He's got a chance to make up some ground here.
I mean, maybe Tennessee puts it all together.
Could be. Auburn at Missouri. Missouri bounced back with a win over Cupcake State last week after they got their doors blown off by Texas A&M. Auburn, 3 straight losses and then a bye. What I'm saying is I don't know where either of these teams is. Where do you think they are, Ted?
Taking the home team, and I don't know where either of them are.
Good call.
I'm not sure Missouri is that good of a football team. We saw what Texas A&M did to them. Auburn is dangerous but inconsistent. So reluctantly, I got to take Missouri.
I'll be honest. I don't know who I'm picking at this point, Gabe. I want to hear your thoughts.
This is more gamesmanship than anything.
Yes.
Maybe Luther Burden's the difference in the football game, but Missouri just has not looked
Missouri,
good.
yeah. Uh-oh.
Give me Auburn.
Okay.
Give me Auburn. And what is it? It's like a 3-point, 4-point spread?
Yeah, I just don't trust Auburn in late football games.
I don't trust Auburn either.
They found ways to lose. That's concerning, so I'm taking Missouri as well. LSU at Arkansas this week. LSU, they just keep getting better, keep winning. They're up into the top 10. Brian Kelly's got them going. Overtime win at home last week. Arkansas's had a week to enjoy that win over Tennessee, haven't they? I'm taking LSU. This is a pretty easy pick for me, Gabe.
The uncertainty around Taylon Green at quarterback for the Razorbacks, I just have to take LSU. If I knew he was close to 100%, I would pick Arkansas to win the game.
I don't think he was even on their injury report.
That doesn't mean that
That's
he's
true.
all the way back.
The
That's
rules
true.
aren't the same as they are in the NFL, Teddy.
I know. I'm taking Arkansas.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
Another.
I think LSU is improving, but they've just gotten by with a couple of close games. And you got to credit them for winning those, right? Winning is a skill, but I like what Arkansas's got right now, like the mojo they got. That place is going to be loud. Give me Arkansas.
Well, you got some good points there, but I'm not changing my pick.
Fayetteville's supposed to be wild when they're good.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. You got number 6, Miami, and Louisville, a big matchup here. Now, Miami's had a bye week. I guess we'd call Cam Ward one of the, if not the, Heisman frontrunner. But they survived Cal. Let's be honest about it before their bye week.
And Virginia Tech.
And Virginia Tech. Yep, that's a good point. And then you got Tyler Shuck, the much-traveled quarterback, right? He was Oregon. We knew him at Texas Tech, and now he's quarterbacking at Louisville. Can he quarterback them to a win this week, Teddy?
I'm picking him. I don't know if he's going to do it or not. I mean, Miami's just getting by, right?
Good way to put it.
Getting by. I'm not sure how good of a football team they actually are. Cam Ward's done some incredible things, kind of on his own, willing them to victory late. I think the luck runs out.
I'm convinced Cam Ward actually takes care of the football for the entire football game.
Okay.
Give me Miami.
I'm taking Miami as well, and I'm told we have to get to break quickly because we are out of time. Sooners in the NFL and hot takes when we wrap things up next on Sooner Game Day.
Sooner Game Day is brought to you by Riverwind Casino. Good times, great rewards. Coca-Cola. Is Coke Zero the best Coke ever? Take a test. OG&E. We energize life. The Sooner Sports Podcast is your all-access audio pass to Sooner Sports. Listen as Toby Rowland and Chris Plank talk all things Sooners. New episodes drop every day. Log on to Soonersports.com/podcast or search Sooner Sports Podcast in your favorite podcast provider. Presented by Allstate and Riverwind Casino.
Oklahoma, South Carolina, 11:45 kickoff on Saturday, and then the guys who play on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays for the big dollars like Baker Mayfield over Spencer Rattler and the Saints. That was an old-fashioned Big 12 throwback kind of a game.
Baker, he's in that MVP conversation. Watch out,
So
people.
is Mark Andrews, quarterback, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes. They're going to be in there. Mark Andrews, though, ties Todd Heap. You play against Todd Heap, Ted, back in the day?
Yes. He was always hurt, though. I don't think he ever played in any of the games that we were in together.
That was a shot. He did have 41
unnecessary
touchdowns.
ricochet shot for Todd Heap.
Joe Mixon was hurt
Todd.
earlier. Now he's pretty good for the Texans. That is a nice offense. How about some hot takes to wrap up the show? They are presented by Air Comfort Solutions, your total home solution for plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. Make the winning call today. We kind of alluded to some of this, I think, in our My Pleasure presented by Chick-fil-A. But what's your hot take? What's it going to be on Saturday?
We're going to score on defense. We're going to score on defense.
That's 2 or 3 times you've said that, but it's been right.
Well, we don't have to. I think there's plenty of chance for the offense, but it would do us a lot of good, and I know those guys feel that.
I've said it multiple times. Key to this game is explosive plays in the passing game. I'll go 2 passes over 40 yards.
2 over 40. Love to hear that.
That feels hot. Hot-ish.
That's pretty hot, yeah. It'll be hot by the time the game is over with as well. You can hear the fellas on the Sooner Radio Network expanded 3-hour pregame show. 8:45 is when it gets started this week. 11:45 will be kickoff, and we're back here for Sooner Game Day next week. For Teddy and Gabe, I'm Chad. We'll see you then.